Hello, everybody. Welcome back to State of Legacy, Episode 6. I'm your host, Matthias NL, and I'm here with Bara and it's Julian, our usual guests. And yeah, we've missed last week due to some travels, some slight illness, but we're back, so that's good. And we have some spicy topics for today. A lot of Delve cards are on the menu. I can tell you that. I bet you didn't see that one coming. So yeah, where do we start? Also, I want to mention the sound issues. We had a couple issues last week. Those should be resolved now. I've also attempted to improve the audio quality on the stream. So yeah, let me know how it sounds, and I'm ready to make more adjustments if needed. All right, we're going to start as usual with our latest SCG Open, which was in, I believe you say Worcester. I'm not 100% on how to pronounce that. And we saw Deathblade actually taking the crown there. Did you guys get a chance to watch the coverage?
A little bit.
Almost not at all, no. I don't even remember what I did last weekend. But
it's all a big haze. You don't really know.
Yeah.
I didn't get to watch the top 8, but some of the Swiss.
Alright, yeah, I also personally didn't get to see a lot, but we can still talk about the metagame, of course. There was the one Deathblade deck which ended up winning, but there were also a lot of elves, which has been a trend lately, as I'm sure you know, Julian.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of Delver, which is no surprise as well. Yeah, I wanna talk a little bit more about Delver because after we saw Bob Huang win that Open with Delver, it's really been becoming a big part of the metagame. Have you guys noticed the same?
Yes, the increase of Delver in the meta is so so apparent. Especially on Magic Online, there seems to be 2 4s in every daily with Delver decks almost. Pretty insane how popular it is now.
Yeah, that's my impression as well. Whenever I play in the daily events, it feels like it used to be all Miracles, but now it's all Blue-Red Delver. And whenever even I watch somebody play in the daily, like Mark streaming today, I think you play a lot against Blue-Red Delver lately as well. So yeah, Blue-Red Delver all the way.
Yeah, and I also have the Moto metagame in a bit, but stick to the SCG. We saw in 7th place, we saw a list by Stephen Hicks, which was 74 cards the same as the one from Bob Huang. The only thing he changed was he added a rough tumble to the sideboard, and he removed the pitting needle. So we see the same deck showing up again. And yeah, last episode I was talking about how impressed I was with this deck and how well tuned it was right from the get-go. And yeah, I mean, there's not really reason to change much if it's working, right?
Yeah.
Mark, have you been also playing the deck?
I have played the deck in one daily, and it was the first time I just jumped into playing the deck, and so it was of course not played 100% optimal, but I still managed to 4-0 and beat Miracles easily despite misplays, and yeah, the deck just seems very, very strong.
Right. Would you say the deck is easy to pick up for somebody that's maybe new to Legacy?
Yeah, I would say that. It doesn't have like Stifle and Wasteland, which are difficult to use, and it just has a bunch of removal spells and card draw and permission.
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. You just want to cast a bunch of cantrips, and of course you can still leverage your skill in correctly casting those cantrips, but your game plan is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I would say that.
Julian, have you played against this deck a lot? You mentioned it's showing up a lot on Magic Online.
Yeah, I've played against a lot of Miracles actually, because that's what I've been trying for the last, I think, 2 weeks now. And it's funny that you mentioned it, that you kind of destroyed Miracles easily, because that of all the decks, and I actually kept an Excel spreadsheet when I picked up Miracles, this is the deck that causes me the most trouble. And when you first look at it, you feel like, okay, the converted mana cost is pretty low, and the creature removal is somewhat dead against Miracles, but it's blistering fast, and trying to set up counterbalance is really hard. And even after sideboarding, they still have Pyroblast, and if it plays out the way it should play out for them, they would still not care a lot about counterbalance if the Pyroblasted or Pyroblasted in response to top flipping.
Yeah.
So it's a really pesky deck, and I don't really like playing against it with Miracles, even though the matchup, after all, according to my spreadsheet, is still almost 50-50. It's slightly in their favor, but I feel if you tune Miracles, for example, to specifically beat it, because Treasure Cruise, once everything works out for you, is not that bad, even though it still sucks for you. You can get there, but overall the deck seems incredibly strong.
Yeah, I agree. And I've also played a bit against it with Miracles, and it's definitely tough. Especially, I'm especially afraid of these sulfuric vortexes from the board because that's like another entire angle. So I was actually keeping in all 4 of my Force of Wills just because I'm so afraid of vortex. And you can also Force of Will a Treasure Cruise sometimes, or even just like their first creature. But it's still really hard to beat it. This deck is good. It's really good. It's definitely the new tier 1, and it's here to stay. Alright, so moving on to the winning deck list, which was an Esper Blade deck. What do you got? Did you guys see that list?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
So it has 3 Treasure Cruises in it, and the rest of the cards are pretty much the usual suspects. Jason Mind Sculptor had to make room for the Treasure Cruises. Do you guys think Treasure Cruise is a better like top end of the curve or finisher than Jace is?
I don't think so, but it all depends on what you're trying to do with the list. Esper Deathblade is one of the decks that you can tune to whatever you want it to be. It can be a supreme very control deck, or it can be a more aggressive tuning Nemesis deck, and this seems to load up on cheaper spells than the average Deathblade deck to power out Treasure Cruises. So I would say that Treasure Cruise is probably better than Jace in this shell, but I do like the Jace shell a little bit better, I would say. But I don't have experience with Treasure Cruise and Deathblade, so it's hard to say.
Right. Julian, you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think they're almost even. As Mark said, it depends a lot on what you actually want to be doing. But in a deck that's somewhat proactive, and I think after all, most late decks still consider themselves proactive, Treasure Cruise can help you a lot. Like, you get an instant advantage as opposed to Chase that's more for grinding out. I mean, overall, Chase is still the better card, but it's also 3 more mana most of the time.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Treasure Cruise makes you somewhat dependent, actually really dependent on your graveyard. But unless your opponent uses stuff like Rest in Peace or Deathrite Shaman and Quirion Ranger every turn, you should easily be able to at least fuel the first Treasure Cruise, and that's already like brainstorm. Maybe not as good as brainstorming because you don't really get to fetch in between, but let's say as good as almost 2 brainstorms of Chase.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
helps.
I would personally like to see like 2 Treasure Cruise, 1 Jace maybe, because that also give you something powerful to maybe draw into with those Treasure Cruises, but I can see it going like this as well. One thing that I was thinking about when I saw this list is maybe Daze could have a place in a deck like this. Because I noticed the 3 Spell Pierces, but those are I think they're pretty awkward because on turn 1 you'll probably want to play like Thoughtseize, Shaman, or Ponder. You usually want to play Ponder to look for Stoneforge Mystic because turn 2 Stoneforge is by far the best thing you can do. So you can't really Spell Pierce on turn 1, and on turn 2 you really want to play Stoneforge. And then on turn 3, I mean, maybe then you can Spell Pierce something, but I would like to try out Daze in a deck like this because it's such a good tempo and it can really put you ahead on the board, especially with Deathrite Shaman, kind of ignoring the missed land drop, so to speak. Do you guys think Daze could work in this deck, or am I is this a bad idea?
I don't think that it's a very good shield for Daze because you're not applying a very much pressure.
Okay.
But like as a surprise factor, I think it could do some work, but it would.
So you're saying it's not fast enough to really take advantage of the.
Yeah,
Daze.
that's what I'm saying.
All right.
But I mean, a surprise factor, it could work in some time, I think. But if people get I don't think it's a terrible idea, but when people figure it out, I think it would be very, very bad.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I also don't really like playing Stoneforge and Daze in the same deck, unless you're at least get some more tempo like Blue White Red Delver has Delver, and you can use Daze to protect Delver on like the first or second turn. But
Yeah,
Stoneforge already eats up quite a bit of mana, and if they abrupt decay at the right point, and you use like Daze early on, then you're suddenly on turn 3, and you've only got like one land in play or two, and yeah, you're pretty far behind. I mean, Spell Pierce doesn't help in the situations as well, but at least you don't miss a land drop.
yeah, okay, I could see that. Fair enough.
But
Yeah,
I don't think that's completely fair because you don't really need to hit a lot of land drops with this deck. There's
Mm.
there's no
no, that's
expensive spells here.
that's why I suggested it. Like the curve is not that high, so
Yeah,
when
you
you
only
have
need to
Jace
hit
in
the
your deck,
third land drop.
when you have Jace in your deck, it's unacceptable to be dazing in something because, yeah, then it's just you just can't ever play Jace then. But yeah, I don't know. I think this deck could be similarly fast to Blue Red Red Delver. Like obviously you don't have the Delver, but you have everything else that that deck has. So
Hmm.
I don't know. It's something to consider, something to think about.
Yeah,
Somewhere somebody will try it out, and it may or may not be terrible, but just wanted to get it out there. So we talked about the Blue Red Delver deck, which was first successfully piloted by Bob Wong, but that player actually played a different deck this time, and he again did pretty well. He played Bug Delver, ended up in 11th place. Here's his Bug Delver list with the full 4 Treasure Cruises main deck.
yeah.
What do you guys think about this deck list?
And so he has adapted Bug Delver to use Treasure Cruise also with Ponder.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that Dimir Charm is like 3 Lotus Petals or something with or no, 2 Lotus Petals with the third mode.
Yeah, I mean the Mirror Charm got a little bit better because it counters sorceries, and if people are treasure cruising, then
Yeah,
you
that's
know
true.
that's a sorcery, and it also kills you know
It
pretty
kills
pretty good
young
creatures,
Pyroman.
Pyromancer, Delver before it's flipped, like shamans.
Yeah, it does
So
do something.
yeah, it used to see some play already before treasure cruise, and I think now it might actually be almost legit to play this card. So. But I'm skeptical about the full 4 treasure cruises, but I believe that could be right. I mean, this guy has shown us that he's a good deck builder, so I can believe that this list is legit. Julian, do you
Yeah.
have an opinion on this list?
Yeah, according to Bob, he said that everybody should try to play as much of Treasure Cruise as long as it's legal in the format, because he thinks that it's definitely up for banning soon. So,
Okay.
in his opinion, whatever you play, just try to play for Treasure Cruises and capitalize off it. So, I guess he's just trying out things now.
He's on board on the Treasure Cruise hype
On
train,
the
I
Treasure,
guess.
he bought it the Treasure Cruise.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I've actually been playing some Paper Legacy again lately.
Whoa,
A friend of mine
man.
has a lot of cards, so I can use some of his decks, and we do some playtest evenings, and I've been the guy that plays Bug Delver because everybody wants to test against it. And I actually played a list with 2 Dick Through Times in it and 0 Treasure Cruises. And Dick Through Time actually worked out really well. But it was a bit more of a mid-range bug deck. It had Lilianas in it, which is a powerful card that you can Dick Through Time for. I think if you're going full on aggression with Stifle, then you probably want Treasure Cruise. But if you're more of a mid-range bug deck, then I think Dig Through Time could be interesting. It definitely performed really well for me in the test games that I played. So, all right. Um, then we're going to move on to your favorite archetype, Julian. There was a pretty spicy elves list. There were 4 elves decks in the top 16. 3 of them pretty normal, but this one stood out to me because there are
I'm pretty sure I
some
know.
interesting choices here. Um, he brings back an old all-star in Priest of Titania, which back in the day used to be one of the best cards in the deck, but lately it hasn't been a factor at all. Do you think Priest of Titania is still good, or is it just too
Um,
slow to really
I
compete?
mean, it's certainly not bad, especially when so many people are playing elves right now. but overall it feels kind of slow. Like Heritage Druid is almost doing the same thing, and I don't know. One one upside of it used to be when your opponent is show and telling anything in, let's say Emrakul, then you put in Priest of Titania, untap, and go crazy. So
Right.
it was almost a silver bullet for the show and tell matchup that could also be cemented at certain points. But overall, I feel it's too slow, and Heritage Druid kind of overlaps with it.
Fair enough. We do see that he's playing both of those. But I mean, he has a different mana sink as well for this for all this mana. He's using Azuri Renegade Leader, which is an elf that lets you overrun your entire team for 5 mana. So if you have a lot of mana, I mean, it's kind of like a Creator Hoof, right? Like, in which situation do you want Azuri and not Creator Hoof?
Suri, I even played it, him or her. I'm still not sure. It's a guy, right?
I think
it's
so.
a guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I played Suri myself when I first started playing elves, and it's a really good card for grindy matchups. Like you just get it on the board, and it's somewhat similar to the wolf guy.
Packmaster.
Packmaster.
Packmaster, yeah. But I still consider Packmaster overall stronger because it's not dependent on you having a lot of guys. And regeneration, yeah, that's nice, but Suri still dies because it's another elf and your opponent has mass removal and it doesn't help you against Terminus. But I think it's okay. But what I have to say, the guy who played the deck posted about it on the source, and I think he said that usually his deck is even more out of the ordinary. Like he already tried to mainstream it for the Star City Games Open. Usually he plays something even more. I can't really say crazy because this deck definitely comes from a certain place that Elves has been
Yeah.
like 2 years ago. But I think he I don't know whether he would have played a more standard version had he had the cards or not, but that's just some preface I want to send out there. He said that he usually plays a even crazier deck, so maybe this is just work in progress. I don't know.
This is he's holding back with this list. He's taking it easy. I mean, there's more throwbacks in here too. I mean, Regal Force is a pretty sick draw engine from not too long ago actually. People used to run like one Regal Force, one Creator Hoof for quite a while before they finally decided to move to 2 Creator Hoofs. And yeah, there's also a 1,000-year elixir in the main deck, which I had to look up. I wasn't quite sure what that did again. It reminded me of Concordant Crossroads. Do you think it's better or worse than Concordant Crossroads?
So I guess you would have to think about what it opens up for your opponent when you play Concordant Crossroads. So you can play, yeah. Well, it doesn't really matter that you can use Soundforge Mystic right away because usually you kill the turn you get Concordant Crossroads into play.
Yeah.
So I feel overall Crossroads is better because the difference between 1 and 3 mana is not negligible, but.
Right, it does let you untap creatures, which I guess with Priest Titania is
Yeah, it's cute, but
even more mana if you need it. And with Deathrat Shaman, maybe it's like sort of a Curian Ranger, sort of a Concordant Crossroads. So I don't know. I mean, he's probably tested it, and it's probably okay. I just have my doubts, but
I just pulled up his post on the source, and this was actually his first sanctioned legacy event. He said.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, he immediately made top 16. That's really impressive.
That's very impressive, yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
And
he's
also
only playing 17 lands, I noticed.
16.
Is it 17 lands including Dryads? No.
If I include Dryad Arbor, it's
Yeah,
17 lands.
including the standard is like 17 lands plus 2 Dryad Arbors, right? So,
No, actually, it's 18 lands plus 2 Dryad Arbors. But okay.
okay.
I think you would have to play quite a lot of decks until the difference actually showed.
Yeah, and he also has a sort of War and Peace in the sideboard. I kind of find that pretty spicy. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, if you want to beat Burn, that's probably a pretty good way to do it. So.
Yeah. Against Burn,
like
it's pretty good. I'm just laughing because I feel like it's the worst of all the sorts.
Well, but against life, like that's what you need, right?
But I really like this delay line that gives +1/+0.
That's
no,
also
++0/+1.
really good against Burn.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ley
Suddenly you
line.
can
Yeah,
easily
it's
block
just
Goblin
it's just
Guide
kind
and
of
stuff.
random to have one ley line, but I guess you can cast it pretty easily, so
Yeah.
it's not the absolute worst.
And
Yes,
Primal Comment.
yeah, the primal command gives them some flexibility. If you play against Reanimator, you can go primal command for Fairy Macabre. I mean, it's a little slow, but hey. And I'll never see it coming once you tutored for it. But,
No.
anyway.
There's a version of Elves that uses Primal Command as the win condition. Somebody, I don't know who, it actually was told me about it, but it's a deck that goes into full combo mode with Glimpse, and then uses Primal Command to pretty much clear your opponent's entire board. And in order to not deck yourself, you're using stuff like, I think it's Elixir of Immortality, and then you keep reusing primal commands. And yeah, somebody begged me to play it on the stream, but I don't know.
You have your doubts. It might be a little too deep. I don't know.
It's pretty deep.
Pretty deep. All right. So if we take the top 16 as a whole, we see 25% elves, 38% delver, 90% reanimator. Actually, reanimator. It was not a fluke that 1 week where it did well. It's continuing to show up. So it looks like reanimator is definitely you did expect that. So it's definitely here to stay. But yeah, a lot of delver and miracles is kind of. Is that fair to say that miracles is kind of on the downfall, or is it too soon to say that?
It seems like it's on the decline, but it is probably a little too soon.
Yeah, we should probably keep an eye on the next events and see if miracles can make a comeback. Maybe it's miracles might need to adjust a bit, change the cards.
Yeah. I think miracles never hit the US in full force the way it did in Europe and on Magic Online. And calling it a decline is almost like, we never really hit the peak in the US, and now we're already on the decline.
Yeah,
I mean, you mentioned the Magic Online metagame, and it also shows there.
Yeah, actually, let's get right onto that one. The Magic Online metagame here. I only had time to do the last 3 dailies, so it's not the full picture, but it's something. And we see Blue Red Delver again. It's showing up, and there are a couple miracles still, quite a few actually, including one of your lists, Julian.
Really?
Using the classic "if you can't beat them, join them" strategy. We've managed to play miracles to a cash finish. Death and Taxes is pretty much only played by you, Mark. I'm not seeing it show up from anyone else. Do you think nobody's playing it, or are you the only one?
No, there's a few guys playing it.
Well, it might be.
Actually, there seems like there's one other guy playing it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've only looked at 3 daily events, so it could be just randomly not a lot of Death and Taxes here. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of Delver, and Miracles is still definitely out there. But Miracles has not 4-0'd in any of the dailies that I've looked at. I want to look at a couple deck lists from Magic Online. Couple interesting ones that I came across. Mostly ones with new Delve cards. Here's a Sneak and Show list, which has incorporated 2 copies of Dig Through Time in the main deck. Do you guys think that's a good addition to the deck?
2 copies of Dig Through Time? I'm not sure. What do you say, Julian?
I can't see the list right now.
It's up on the stream now.
Yeah, it's on the screen right now.
Okay.
It's a pretty standard list otherwise.
I think in general it should be okay, but not in Sneak and Show. And I know about some guys from Berlin who went to the Danish Legacy Open, Legacy Masters, or whatever you call it, championships. And it was, I think, Carsten Cotter and Kai Thiele who won the last Prague Eternal. And they sent me a list that's pretty much Omniclash, but instead of Enter the Infinite, they are playing Dig Through Time. Because their reasoning is, outside the combo, it's infinitely better because you're never going to hardcast Enter the Infinite. And once you got the combo like Omniscience in play, it's 99% Ascot because you're almost always gonna guarantee to get there with it.
Yeah,
So,
you just need to hit a Cunning Wish with it or another Dig 2 time.
yeah, and I kind of like that reasoning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that seems good.
That makes sense.
Actually, I played a local legacy tournament yesterday, and at 4-0, I met another Sneak and Show deck. Not another. I was playing this in Texas, but I met a Sneak and Show with 3 decks 2 times, and I talked with him, and he's a really dedicated Sneak and Shows player, and he told me that it was really, really good. So yeah, I have to believe that it is decent in Sneak and Show actually.
Yeah, I have a similar story. I actually also played a paper tournament for the first time in a long time, and I also played against a Sneak and Show player. He only had 1 Dig 2 time in his deck, but it definitely won him the game. Like, I was playing Miracles, and it was kind of a grindy game. I countered most of his stuff, but then he was able to resolve Dig 2 time, and I just lost. Like, he immediately found like the combo plus a counter spell, and I couldn't do anything. So against slower decks, this card is fantastic because it allows you to just like the game's gonna go long, and then you just find like either 2 counter spells or anything from your combo you're missing, and then you just win. But yeah, it's if you need to be fast, like if the metagame is aggressive, if there's not a blue red delver, then you probably don't want too many of these because they can clog up your hand. And something else to say about this is that playing some number of misdirections goes a long way in making them better, because then at least you can pitch them to a counterspell if they're not doing anything. So I would like to see probably like cutting 2 spell piercers from this list for maybe 2 misdirections to try and make them a little more versatile, more useful. But that's about it. I think they're a legit inclusion, but I don't think they make the deck significantly better or anything. I think they're just like they're okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to another deck list. It is everyone's favorite deck, Burn. But it's not just your everyday Burn. This was piloted by Sly Guy 183, and he's splashing blue for, you guessed it, Treasure Cruise. So, do you guys think splashing Treasure Cruise improves the Burn deck?
Yes, I think so. It gives it, like, usually if you're at 5 or so, you can. There's a lot of games where you win because you're at 5 or 6 and they're top decking.
Yeah.
And now they can top deck 3 burn spells at once, and I think that's a significant improvement to the deck. But I mean, has some weaknesses, but I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He's also playing 8 fetch lands, so I think if you want to get full value out of Treasure Cruise as fast as possible, there's no better deck to play than Burn. I don't know about the 2 Taxian Probes. I mean, yeah, they fuel Treasure Cruise, but honestly, what are you using the advantage of seeing your opponent's hand?
Well, I think he's also playing he's also playing Monastery Swift Spear, so I think it's just like
that's
it's randomly like doing some stuff there too. I like that he's only playing 2 Treasure Cruises because you can't really afford to get a slow hand with Burn, where you have like 2 Treasure Cruises in your hand and you just have to sit there for a couple of turns before you can really start doing something. So 2 seems like a good amount. But I mean, the obvious question is like, why wouldn't you just play Brainstorm as well, like, or even Delver? Like, if you're playing this, why shouldn't you just play Blue Red Delver? Is there a reason to play this over Blue Red Delver, or is it probably just a worse version of it?
Well, there's the Eidolon. That's a big draw to the deck.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure where it's positioned against Blue Red Delver.
I think this deck is like the first step, and if you want to move deeper into the format and apply your skills even better, as you mentioned, Blue Red Delver, adding Delver and Brainstorm is the next step.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like, you're not normally you could play Burn and say, okay, I'm dodging all the creature removal because I'm just playing Burn, but adding Monastery Swift Spirit to the deck kind of takes that away again and makes it so they still have targets for your removal, and you're not really gaining a significant advantage by sleeving up Lava Spike over maybe Delver of Secrets. But I mean, this is definitely. I think this deck is definitely still good, but it could be better with maybe a couple more blue cards, like most decks in Magic. All right, moving on to another pretty spicy deck. When I saw this deck, I immediately wanted to try it out because it looks pretty good. It is a blue-white red deck. One might say Jeskai, but I'm not going to. It looks suspiciously like miracles, but there are no miracles in the deck, and consecutively no sensitive divining tops or counterbalances. So it's really just a blue-white-red control deck.
Yeah, I think I've seen mention on that on the source.
Okay. So you give up the miracles, you give up the counterbalance, but you do get some pretty powerful Del spells. Do you guys think that's worth it? Is this a route worth exploring?
Huh.
That's quite a list. Yeah, worth exploring, absolutely. I'm not sure how good it is, but yeah, figure that out by trying it. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try this deck. This was played by Sam51087, by the way. Just want to give credit to the designer. Yeah, I mean, I've been really liking the main deck Stoneforge Mystics in my Miracles list, so I really like that he has those. And Engineered Explosive seems like it actually just got quite a bit better because there are so many Delver decks, and Explosive is a pretty good way to like just clean up their board and control the game. Main deck Red Blasts are good against Treasure Cruise. I think this deck has a lot of tools. It can do well, but I think it could need some tuning, and I would definitely like to see at least one Supreme Verdict in the main deck, because you have like 4 dig through times, so you probably want to be able to find a Wrath if needed. So that's something I would do, and yeah, I don't know if I would play 4 digs and 2 Treasure Cruises. That might be with only 9 fetch lands. I think that's stretching it a little bit. But I think with some tuning, this deck could be pretty real. I'm definitely going to try it out.
I really wonder how game 1 against combo feels like, because you got a lot of counter spells, probably the biggest amount of counter spells in all of Legacy, but your clock is really, really slow, and you probably don't even want to tap out on the second turn.
Yeah.
So that's what he makes up for in the sideboard, I just see. Yeah.
The clock is actually a pretty good point. Because without Entreat the Angels, there isn't really a way to like quickly win the game, because you're pretty much all in on that one Batterskull or Fate Sealing them with Jace. Both of those take quite a while to win, so it's a pretty slow deck. On Magic Online, that's not the biggest deal, because if you can play fast, it's fine. But in a paper tournament, this deck probably digs itself through time most of the rounds, so that could be problematic.
But at least he's got the one Graphic Cage in the sideboard, so he's not going to lose to Dredge.
No, of course not. He's going to dig through time for it on turn 5.
Yeah.
He's going to be like, haha!
Gotcha.
I have you now. Oh wait, you already have 5 zombies. Anyway, yeah, those are the lists that I noticed on Magic Online. So overall, like, how do you guys feel the Delve cards have impacted Legacy so far?
Well, they have shaken up the format a little bit, which is never a horrible thing, but yeah, it's not great for Dozen Texas, I wouldn't say. And Blue-Red Delver being popular makes it even worse, because people are starting to play Electrickery now, and it's not so good for me.
Yeah, same for Ives. It suffers from the Blue-Red Splashade, because people now have even more incentive to play -1/-1 effects, because Pyromancer is such a mainstay in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And as Mark said, I like it when the format gets shaken up and something really new and potent comes into it. But Treasure Cruise, I don't know. I really like Dig Through Time, But Treasure Cruise, maybe it's time to get a new approach to the game and fight even harder about the graveyard. I don't know how, but it don't really feel like Treasure Cruise should be positioned as it is right now, because right now it's one of the most potent deck in all of Legacy, cards in all of Legacy. And well, I don't know, maybe we need more playable counter spells for sorceries or whatever, but that's not an option for every deck. So I really hope people adapt to Treasure Cruise even more, so that Blue-Red Diver doesn't dominate the way it does right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like Blue Red Delver is necessarily overpowered or unbeatable, but it's definitely a great deck, and it's not easy to beat. It has a game plan for almost every matchup, and like you said, like the like trickeries, the zealous persecutions, the forked bolts, they're really hating on the small creatures, which both of you guys happen to really like in decks. So yeah, that's problematic. I think existing decks will have to find new ways to fight against this. We talked a little bit about those ways in the earlier episode. Mark, for example, I've noticed you started playing Spirit of the Labyrinth in Death Texas.
Yes, I think that has become mandatory almost in Death Texas now. Yeah, I would say that you have to play Spirit now, because it's just, it was already like, it was not worth including, because starting Brainstorm and Ponder and being an X1 at the same time was not good enough. But you have to stop Treasure Cruise, and now it put it over the top into playability, and now it's actually pretty decent. So I'm definitely advocating Spirit of the Labyrinth in Death Texas now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, it's not an elf. Otherwise, it could be interesting.
Very good with Glimpse of Nature and Age Legendary.
The combos.
So I feel like maybe at some point we will see a card like Gardotik come back, because after all, it's still good against Miracles, even though they have Caracas. But like all the European guys aren't even playing it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's also good against all the dive spells. So in the end, what you think about the dive spells, of course, also depends a lot on what you like to play and what you feel a healthy metagame looks like. And to me, a good metagame is always a metagame where straight up green-white Maverick is playable. Not as good as it used to be like in 2011, but where it's actually playable. And to me, it always hurts that people don't play the deck anymore, because I still really like the deck. And I wish somebody would just throw a deck out there that played like 2 Gardotiks and maybe even a third one in the sideboard with a way to protect it, because Blue-Red Diver has a lot of options to get rid of it, obviously.
Yeah.
But I really wish somehow somebody would make it happen. So that would, I mean, the tools are there. Thalia, of course, is pretty good against Blue-Red Diver. Gadok is really good against Blue-Red Diver. But maybe not really good. Actually, it's not very good. But at least it stops the Treasure Cruise.
Yeah, it's okay.
After all.
It helps.
It blocks elemental token.
Actually, we've already seen a bit of a comeback of Galactique. If you look at the elves list in the Worcester Open, most of them had Galactique, at least in the sideboard. But yeah, those aren't really like well, I want to say dedicated Galactique decks, but there aren't any decks like that. But elves just randomly has a Galactique. But like you say, maybe there should be a new Maverick deck that makes a Galactique one of its main game plans. In combination with Mother of Runes and Thalia, you can maybe work something out. There are a lot of sweet cards.
That's a thought I had today. If you get Thrun to the table, it just stays there. And yeah, they still have tokens to block and whatever, but Thrun is like a road stop for everything on the ground. Probably even for Monastery Swiftspear. So you really only have to deal with Delver, and maybe if they go like really deep into the token zoo and get lots of tokens and just rush Thrun. But I can't like Thrun usually.
If you put some pants on them, like a Fire and Ice or a GTA, then you can move on to the next game pretty quickly. So it's definitely a cool card. Yeah. So and also I also feel like people aren't playing enough Notion Thieves yet. It's a card I suggested I think it was last episode or the one before that, as a card to really fight against Treasure Cruise. And yeah, if you look at the Deathblade decks and even the Bug Delver, like he's pretty hard to cast in Bug Delver, but Deathblade should be able to cast Notion Thief, and I would like to see at least this sideboard like 1 or 2 copies to fight the attrition wars. It's a pretty cool card, and you can put an equipment on him too. So I don't know. He is 4 mana though, so maybe that makes him too slow.
I think it's not only a little bit too slow, it's also the board impact is just not enough. The 1 toughness really, really hurts it, and when there's so many removal spells in Blue Red Delver, it's also easy to just have it removed, and then you spend 4 mana, they spend 1 mana, and they still draw 3 cards. Of course, that's like the worst case scenario, but it just seems hard to benefit a lot from.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe you're overrating it.
I believe you can get them once, but after that they will always have at least 1 mana available, because the Blue-Red Delver sometimes has a tendency to cast Treasure Cruise while tapping out, but you getting a Notion Thief for the first Treasure Cruise, it's probably not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And for the second one, they will probably have mana available, and after that they will always keep like mana open to play around it if you've got 4 mana. So it's kind of a one-trick pony.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, maybe I'm overrating this card. He also runs
I still like it,
pretty handily into days.
Against Blue Red Delver.
Yeah. I don't know. As a one-off, you probably can't go too wrong with it. So I don't know. I would try it out, but it might not be good enough. All right. So then we have on the horizon Grand Prix New Jersey. When are you guys going to travel there?
The 12th of November, I believe we're flying out.
Yeah.
All right. So it's still a couple of weeks away. Are you guys already 100% set on the deck you're going to play, or is there still some doubt about?
I'm set. I believe Julian is not set on the deck. He's
after Ovinogeddon, where I mentioned Philip actually called the finals before the tournament, and that was the exact final that came about. I felt like I kind of owed it to myself to at least try Miracles, and because I really wanted to know how well I would do with it, and keeping my spreadsheet, I think I played about 40 games with it, or 50, and my win percentage is around 68%, which is okay, given that I'm not always playing super focused on Magic Online.
Yeah.
But
68% is really good.
That's really good,
yeah, but Miracles is also really good.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I really don't enjoy playing it. Like, really not enjoy. I really don't enjoy playing it. So I'm very much looking at elves. I've got Infect built because I feel that Infect should be pretty good. I also randomly have Blue-Red Delver built because that's what I discovered when I just browsed my binder, and there was like, oh, I've got all of these cards. But in the end, I'm very much leaning towards elves. By the way, Mark, you gotta give me the cards on Magic Online.
Quick reminder.
No way.
I mean, this would be the perfect opportunity for me to brag about my 85% win rate with Miracles, but I'll not do that. That would be rude. I am personally not going to the GP, but if I was, I would probably play Storm, actually. That's because I have a lot of experience with Storm, and I feel like it completely rolls over the Blue-Red Delver deck. There are almost no counterspells in the Blue-Red Delver deck. There are no Wastelands. Their clock is reasonable, but it's not even that fast. Like, their Goldfish is probably turn 4, 5-ish, so with only Forcible and Days to worry about, it's really easy to race that with Storm. And if Miracles is actually on the decline, then Storm is poised to do really well in that potential metagame. So, except if Reanimator is really as big as it seems, because that matchup is almost unwinnable for Storm. So, it's still a bit of a gamble, but I would like my chances with that deck if I were to play. Speaking of that, I'm probably going to do alternative commentary for the GP, and I'm going to keep track of how these two fine gentlemen are doing in the tournament, and make sure to keep you guys updated about that. Because of course you're going to expect at least one of you to top 8.
Yeah, that's
That would be the least. All right. So you're leaning towards elves, Julian, but I can sense some doubt there.
Mm, honestly, I haven't played elves in 2 weeks when I picked up miracles, and when I don't really want to say stopped playing it, but when I switched to miracles for a while, Blue Red Delver hasn't been as big, so I have to get in more games to see how I feel, and especially to see how I want to construct the sideboard. Because when I played Ovino, I was pretty convinced that I want 2 Meek Stones because they are really good against Delver. But with Blue Red Delver actually being probably maybe even more than the flavor of the month right now, Meekstone isn't as good against them. It only stops like 1/3 of their creatures. So I have to construct a good sideboard for elves, and once I've done that, I'm feeling pretty confident in the deck. And I mean, the results in the US show that elves is still a force to be reckoned with. Hey, kitty. And yeah, I'm very much in favor of elves. I just gotta find a sideboard I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And speaking, have you found any good sideboard cards against Blue Red Delver? Maybe Energy Storm, for example.
No, I haven't found any yet. But I also haven't been actively looking for them right now. Energy Storm is interesting. I still don't like it. I need something, maybe even. No, I'm not going to say that. The card that Dueling Grounds, I think it's called, that only
Dueling
lets one
Grounds.
chat. Dueling Grounds, yeah. But no, that's 3 mana. That's not happening, and it's white. No.
Yeah.
Something, maybe even something like, I don't know, Umesawa's shit. Something.
That takes me back, man. Dueling Grounds. I used to play that card with Knight of Reliquary getting Maze of Ith. Like, oh, you can only attack with one creature, and I maze it. Haha. But yeah, I used to be able to rage against goblins and stuff. But I don't know. Well, you still have some time to work out that sideboard. Mark, you're 100% set on Death and Taxes?
absolutely. I just have to work out the details of my main deck and sideboard, but that will be a process that won't be done up till before like the very day before the GP. I feel like.
All right, you're still gonna see how the metagame changes, and
yeah,
then decide in the end how you're gonna play it. Actually, something I wanted to ask you, because last week we talked a little bit about the difference between Maverick and Death and Texas, and how I described it was that Death and Texas has a better mana denial plan, and Maverick has a higher threat density because they don't have Aether Vials but more creatures instead. Would you feel that's like a fair assessment, or are there any other differences you would like to
highlight? Well, the mana denial thing is very, very strong. There's more room for like there's I feel like there's a wider variety of threats in Maverick, since you can also green some zenith up a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And you get to play some funky lands also sometimes if you choose to do that. But a major difference also that Maverick doesn't really have any flyers besides Script Ranger, and Death and Taxes has a bunch of flyers. And I just like, if you talk about how it's positioned, I think that Death and Taxes is just so much better right now.
Right.
But differences is as I've described, and the lack of flyers really, really hurts Maverick.
Yeah, see, I'm glad I asked, because that's something I didn't immediately think of. But it's actually really relevant, especially again, even against cards like True Name Nemesis, where you really want to fly over, or Young Pyromancer making a bunch of tokens.
Yeah, just blocking a Delver is really important sometimes too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. Yeah, so
I
you
think one
feel.
of the draws. Sorry, yeah. Continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think one of the draws towards Maverick always used to be, as you mentioned, Green Sun Senate, because it gives you better access to your silver bullets. So you could play like really strong cards like Garotique or I don't know Thrun or whatever, and have better access to them. And obviously Knight, because Knight used to be and probably still is the biggest creature in all of Legacy that actually gets casted.
I think it's Clone Hydra now.
Yeah.
Is
Shout
that
outs
card
to
in
Nick.
Nick Fit these days? Or
No, it's in Liché's Beast Stumpy deck.
Beast Stomping? Okay. I'm gonna have to get a deck list of that for the next episode. So we can
Everybody in the internet is trying to get that deck list.
Yeah, we'll have to wait after the GP, I guess he said.
Is he actually gonna play it?
Or I can't say. I haven't asked him, but
Okay, that would
It also
surprise me.
features Loxodon Warhammer. Maybe we can put together the puzzle by watching the VODs of Kenji when he lost it.
Loxodon Warhammer.
or maybe he'll just plays in a daily. Maybe he's being careful with the dailies he's playing with it, so that it doesn't get posted. But
Maybe he's
pretty
making
sure.
sure that he always just tutus, so he concedes.
Yeah.
he 3-1 the same daily as Kenji played.
But it didn't get posted, unfortunately. So.
No, unfortunately, since I followed that daily.
You know, speaking of 4-0ing, I really hate that it doesn't have the pop-up box anymore. It says like, your name won the tournament. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I missed that.
It used to be my favorite.
Do you like that it doesn't have that? Or?
No, I hate it.
Yeah, me
I want
too.
it
It was
back.
so cool. It's so cool to have your name spammed on everyone's account.
Yeah. Even though it was usually just tiebreakers that set you in
Yeah.
first place,
Yeah.
it still was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pointless, but it still felt pretty
Yeah.
good. All right. Yeah. So now will be the opportunity for the chat to ask some questions. We'll answer some good ones if they're out there. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about kind of a negative subject, which is cheating. Because there was another big controversy this week. Trevor Humphreys on SCG was stacking his opponent's deck using shuffle tricks. So now that we're talking about Grand Prix New Jersey, yeah, so how can you avoid, you're sitting down at the tournament, what do you need to watch out for to make sure that your opponent's not doing anything cheaty or against the rules? Do you guys have any tips for the people that are watching? How do you avoid getting cheated in a tournament?
There's some basic tips like watch the eyes of your opponent
Yeah.
when he's shuffling. That's something I make sure to do always, because that's just an important and easy way to catch a cheater, and it's very important that your opponent is not watching your deck before the game begins. He shouldn't get access to any information. And yeah, I forget what other tips I have.
I think when you asked that question, the very first thing I also wanted to say is watch your opponent's eyes, because that's what I always do. And I posted about it on the source that I not always enforce correct shuffling by my opponent because, you know, I don't know if you can see that on the webcam, but you know, these people, they can't really shuffle, so they always have to look at your deck to make sure they are not dropping it, and that's not okay. If you can't shuffle my deck without looking at it, well, then you have to do something else. I don't know, call a judge or whatever. But really, if you want to play in competitive events, you have to learn how to shuffle a deck without looking at it. And it's not really that hard. But some people even, they put the deck on a table facing them, and then they do like this. And that's, I don't know if you can see that on the stream, by the way, but face cards facing towards your opponent while shuffling, that's an absolute no-go. And you should tell your opponent right away, and if he still does that, you call a judge immediately. I mean, I could even see calling a judge immediately. I would feel weird about it. I would at least first say something. But if I feel like my opponent gets an advantage, and seeing your opponent's deck, oh my god, that's one of the probably the biggest advantage you can get in the pregame. So, I don't know. Don't feel like a dick. You paid like, I don't know how much you paid. Mark and me, we paid like 1,000 euros, maybe even more, to go to the USA and get a hotel and whatever. And if we are playing in a tournament, we want you to play correctly. And even if one of us is making a mistake, I mean, everybody makes mistakes. Call people out on their mistakes. At least do it in big tournaments. And yeah, that's kind of what I want to appeal to you guys to do in the future. Don't feel weird about calling people out on making what you would consider a slight, an honest mistake. Yeah, honest mistakes happen, but they don't happen every round. And if they do happen every round, maybe they're not honest.
Yeah, I've let that happen to myself as well. Like, you want to believe that people are good. You want to believe that that wasn't intentional, but it probably was, and you should probably have called the judge. So Even if you suspect that there's something wrong, that's already a red flag. You should already probably be calling a judge just to make sure. Like, if you're in doubt, just call a judge and get it sorted out, because the worst thing you can have happened to you is getting screwed over out of your tournament and losing because somebody cheated against you. Some other tips I have is keep an eye on the round timer, and if your opponent is taking a long time to do decisions, just time how long it takes them, and then you can actually just tell him, like, hey, you've been thinking for a full minute on this brainstorm, you should make a play. Or, hey, you've already been sideboarding for like 3 minutes, you should present your deck right now. If you actually keep an eye on the time, you can call them out on it. You can tell a judge how slow he's been playing, and that actually puts pressure on your opponent if you do that. A lot of people kind of they get pressured, and they kind of actually play worse sometimes if you do that. And it's not even like a scumbag move, because if they're slow, they deserve to get punished for it. So definitely keep an eye on the playing speed of your opponent, especially if you're playing a slow deck yourself, where you really need every minute you can get to finish the match. And also, always shuffle your opponent's deck.
Always.
Don't just cut it. Mana weaving is a very real thing, so especially before game one, you really want to give it a thorough shuffle.
Yeah.
I remember like earlier this year, I don't remember his name, but it was a Spanish player that I recognized for having good results in Legacy for several years. And he was actually banned because in the top 8 of some Legacy tournament in Spain, he at some point recognized that his opponent always declined to shuffle or even cut his deck. So in the top 8 stream, it was kind of obvious that he shuffled the right card he needed to the top and just placed his deck and miraculously drew it like every turn. And he was actually banned for that. Never do not shuffle your opponent's deck. It's like one of the biggest no-nos you do at big tournaments. You're actually required to shuffle your opponent's deck.
Yeah.
I don't know if it says cut or shuffle, but you are definitely required to interact with your opponent's deck. Otherwise, you will get a warning.
It's definitely in the rules, yeah. So you're obligated to do that.
So there's a lot of things to keep track on, but I'm gonna add one more thing. Keep a count on everything when you're playing. Like, if your opponent is brainstorming, make sure he's picking up 3 cards and putting back 2 cards. And like, if, for example, at GP Paris, there was a guy who cheated with brainstorm in the top 8, and that would have not happened if you're keeping that count always. Make sure your opponent only picks up 3 cards with a ponder and so on.
Yeah.
Just keep a count on the cards to make sure the state of the game and how the spells are being resolved is always right.
And also announce everything verbally. But when there's confusion, when you are the guy who announced something verbally and the other guy didn't, the judge is probably gonna lean in your favor because you are the guy who actually said what happened, whereas your opponent, you would be like, yeah, but it was obvious, yeah, but whatever, you didn't say it. So
yeah. And the same goes for changing life totals or anything. You should always double check with your opponent by saying out loud. I mean, I would like to say that we live in a world where you can trust your opponents and everybody's playing according to the rules, but that is unfortunately just not the case. So, watch your back. Watch out for yourself.
Maybe even when you feel like you can trust your opponents, people make honest mistakes. And
that too,
should happen. When I was watching, I think I talked about it last time we were on the vintage playoffs at Ovino Geddon. Both in the semifinals and the finals, people played an extra land. And I'm very much convinced that it was an honest mistake, but something like that shouldn't happen, so pay attention.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, it's quite a negative topic, so let's move on from that. We have a couple of questions from the chat. Guys, if you have any more questions, feel free to type them in. So, how do we think Doomsday is positioned in the current metagame?
Well, it's a Storm deck, but it's a super fragile Storm deck. And Storm seems well positioned right now. Doomsday, I don't know. I don't think it's actually well positioned because Doomsday has trouble with some trouble with burn actually, because you go very low when you're comboing off.
Yeah.
And so when there's so many lightning bolt decks in the format right now, I'm not a huge fan of Doomsday. I've lost many times because I couldn't play around bowl and have Doomsday from 7 and then get bolded.
Yeah, that happened to me as well.
I think
So
to see how Doomsday is positioned, you have to first think about what's actually the upside, the advantage of playing Doomsday over regular Storm.
the upside is that you're playing a super cool deck.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
major upside.
Okay,
No,
I'm
but
out.
the advantage is that you can play it through 8 cards. Like we talked earlier about how Galactique should maybe make a comeback. Now that's a card that Doomsday doesn't care about at all. So fighting hate card is one of the strengths of Doomsday, but it's slow, and yeah, being slow is not great when everybody is casting Delver of Secrets.
So if there's a meta with a lot of Storm, then I think Doomsday is very well positioned, because if you're playing at least what I think is a good version of Doomsday with 7 chance main, then it's pretty hard to lose to Storm.
Yeah, and also having 4 sensitive divining chops
Exactly.
helps against discard as well. So if there's a slow attrition based meta with lots of hate cards, then this deck could do something. But like we're not even talking about playing the deck optimally yet, which is an entirely different question. So all
You
right,
also get to play one of the funkiest mana bases in Legacy. You go like Island, Badlands, Caracas.
yeah, I don't play Caracas. That's
Yeah,
still
I think
deep.
Caracas is getting cut now because of Legend
Or
Rules.
from the standard list. I
Yeah.
wasn't up to date.
All right, well, this is a cool question here. We can make a bet on this one. How many treasure cruises will be in the top 8 of Grand Prix New Jersey? How many copies of Treasure Cruise are going to be in the top 8? We're going to write this down now, and whoever gets closest will be the winner of this contest.
I think probably like 20.
20? Alright,
No, that's too much. I'd say 12.
12 copies. Alright, I'm gonna
33. I don't think so.
say yeah, I mean it's just too easy for me to say 13 because then it's like way better. That's kind of lame. We should do this blind, I guess.
Yeah.
should do this without knowing the opponent's answers.
So you want to say 12 as well? That's okay.
I kind of no. I'll say 11. No, I want to say 10. I'll keep it fair. If there's 11, we'll draw.
I wanted to say 10 as well in the beginning. 4, 8. Then there's the random burn deck in the top 8. Then there's the random sneak and show. Then there's 1 or 2 elves, 2 miracles. Yeah, I feel 10. Nah. So I say, well, it's pretty stupid if I say 11, because that's probably the worst spot to be in, because then,
Yeah. But if it is
know.
exactly 11, you'll get the infinite bragging rights. So
I also
Too much strategy in this.
I think it's 8. Okay, it's gonna be 8.
Okay, 8.
Actually, that's pretty stupid. I'm gonna say 9.
I'm screwed. Yeah. Well, now I'm screwed. So thanks. Okay. Alright, so is now a good time to be playing Lingering Souls on Magic Online with all the blue-red Delver decks?
In modern, maybe.
Yeah, in modern maybe, but Lingering Souls is too clunky for Legacy in my opinion. It has to be a very specific metagame for Lingering Souls to be good. I think it's a little bit too clunky.
I agree, and I think it still gets grinded out by Young Pyromancer in the end.
Yeah.
I do like Zealous Persecution if you're playing black and white, but I don't know if I would necessarily combine that with Lingering Souls. But I think Zealous Persecution is very good right now. So
Yeah, I agree with that.
you should definitely try that one out. But I kind of prefer True Name still over Souls if you're playing a Deathblade deck. The nicest thing about True Name is that he's blue, so that you won't have any problems with your blue count. If you replace True Names with Souls, then the number of blue cards is pretty bad. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Alright, another question here. What do we think about a remand in Legacy? Could that card be
Unplayable.
playable? Unplayable?
Really slow. I mean, it's Legacy. You don't want to hold open 2 mana. Like, even the best of the control decks are never gonna not use something for their mana. I mean, yeah, you're gonna get counterspell, but counterspell is much better in the late game.
Yeah.
And in the, I don't know. I mean, if you can randomly hit the dive cards, of course, but I think overall,
So the point of remand is to strand the delve card in the hand, but it's gonna be active 2 turns later. Just
Yeah.
counterspell.
Probably. Yeah, and Counterspell is just at the same mana cost. It's kind of a good one. So yeah.
yeah, counterspell is like it's an added bonus. Like once you get to the 4th or 5th turn and you have some mana lying around, yeah. But even in Miracles, you're not gonna randomly just counterspell whatever they play on turn 2. You'd much rather ponder or Swords to Plowshares or use top. When you're in a position where you just go second land go without having top on the first turn, and you're kind of all in on using your counterspell because you can't set up Terminus on the next turn. That's a position you don't really want to be in, I feel. And so counterspell is more for the mid to late game, and remand doesn't really help you all that much there. And it's very specifically against delve cards.
Yeah, it's just I don't really think it's worth considering playing remand.
You can do cute stuff with storm cards, but for that we're like 8 years late.
In High Tide, maybe, but that's about it. Alright, now this is an interesting question. What is a card that you often cut from your favorite deck, but you wish you could play it?
I gotta pull up my sideboard.
I mean, you would say Packmaster, but you actually played it, so
I played, yeah.
that doesn't really count. I wish I could play Elspeth Knight Errant. I really like that card, and I used to play that card a lot in Legacy. But recently, it's been not even remotely good enough anymore.
So what's your favorite deck you're talking about then?
Well, I used to always play green, white, black with Elspeth, but then I also used to play it in Stoneforge Mystic decks. Giving your Battle Skull plus 3/3 and flying. It's not bad. It's not bad. But I mean, it's just not good enough anymore. So I wish I could play it, but I can't justify it anymore. But it is one of my favorite cards still.
I would say in general, to me, it's Noble Hierarch. I'm pretty sure Noble Hierarch is my favorite card on all of Magic, and that's also why I feel so drawn towards Blue-Green Infect, because it's probably the best Noble Hierarch deck we have around right now.
Mm-hmm.
But for Elves, I'm very, very satisfied with the main deck. For the sideboard, I feel like it might sound stupid because it's not like a real card, like who, but I always hate when I have to cut both Surgical Extraction and Mindbreak Trap, because both give you another angle of attack, like the manaless angle, where you actually get to tap out on the first 2 turns with Elves, where it's most critical, and they buy you time against all combo decks they are good against. And they're not there to win the match, but to buy time. And this kind of having somewhat more breathing room, that always feels good. But they're probably, in the sense of the question, they're probably the cards that get cut from my sideboard the most.
All right. Mark, do you have something?
I already play 4 for all the sweet cards. I play 4 Mother Runes and 4 Flicker Wisp. So I'm living the dream, baby.
Fair enough. Alright, let's see. So how do we feel about punishing fire in the current metagame?
Slow.
Everything that's slow right now is not that good. Legacy was kind of slowing down with Miracles and Shardless Black, but Blue Red Delver and Infect and also Elves, they're cutting a lot of decks out of the meta right now.
Yeah, I just think it's too slow. I think you need to be playing Lightning Bolt right now.
Yeah, but I mean, you could play both, right? Play some Lightning Bolts and some Punishing Fires.
That's also what I ended up doing in my Faden deck, but because I just found that Punishing Fire was too slow most of the time.
Fair enough. Yeah, I do think Punishing Fire is a good finisher, as strange as that sounds in those Delver matchups. it's a good way to lock up the game, but you do need something else to stave off the initial rush, and maybe that's Golgari Charm, maybe it's Lightning Bolt, maybe it's Source of Plowshares, but you need something else that's cheap to really deal with the first guys, and then you can lock it up with Punishing Fire. Alright. And then, are there any legacy decks that are maybe one good card away from being a serious contender in the format?
I think there's a ton of decks that are like that, and I think that's a major topic. That's hard to discuss on the spot.
Yeah, that's probably gonna be a bit deep to discuss right now. Fair enough. All right.
I'm looking at GC decks and all the decks, and well,
Core Firewalker. I'd have to respond to this question real quick about Core Firewalker in Desert Texas. It is definitely not better than Circle of Protection Red. You saw today how I fought the daily because of Circle of Protection Red against Burn, and that Core Firewalker would not have. Core Firewalker would not have fought that daily. So it's definitely not better than Circle of Protection Red, but it is worthy of consideration. And I have thought about it a little bit, but I think it's too low impact.
I mean, it's worse than Circle against Burn, but do you bring in Circle?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean maybe.
I do bring in Circle of Protection against Brewed Delver, actually, since it stops Monastery of Swiftsphere and stops Burn from going to the face.
Fair enough, but do you think Firewalker would be better in that matchup than Circle, or is it close?
I think it would be better, yes. I think Core Firewalker is better than Circle of Protection Red against Brewed Delver, but it's not really what it's for. Brewed Delver is much more of a grindy matchup than Burn is.
Yeah.
So I would rather have like Spirit of Labyrinth or something to stop them from grinding better than me.
Alright. Yeah, somebody actually asked a question about goblins. I'm glad you did that, because I almost forgot. I was gonna talk about this today. So this is an old creation of mine that goes quite back some time. So when I made this deck, people probably know in the Netherlands people play a lot of Storm. That's like something we do here. And I'd never played Storm, but I was always losing to Storm. So I was playing Merfolk, and I was losing to Storm because I had some counter spells, but I couldn't kill them fast enough. And then I'd recover. And my friend was playing Goblins, but he couldn't beat Storm because he was fast, but he didn't have any disruption. So then one day I was like, hey, wait a second, what if I combine disruption from Merfolk with the clock from Goblins? Well, that's that's how we ended up with the Merflins deck, which I still occasionally play on the stream. It is not tier 1, it is not tier 2. Maybe it's tier 4.
That sounds like the intro to South America. Serious. It's not tier 1. It's not tier 2. But
but it is Merflins. But it is a lot of fun to play. And going Goblin Lackey in the standstill still feels amazingly good. And yeah, just getting to play some spicy one-offs like Gravel Master, Kranko, and even Goblin Flactomancer. Yeah, I mean, this deck is a lot of fun to play. If you're looking to have some fun in Legacy, this could be a thing. If you're looking to win a tournament, stay very far away from this deck. But I mean, you don't often get to play Jace the Mind Sculptor and Goblin Lackey in the same deck, so you gotta
exactly the same list like 6 years ago in Munich for 1 or 2 tournaments, and I was playing Merfolk back then, and I actually only won because I had Island Walk against this Goblin.
Against his pile drivers, yeah. Yeah, Island Walk. That's problematic because we do have islands in this deck. Alright, I just wanted to quickly bring the deck up. I'm not going to talk much about it. Yeah, that's gonna be it for today. I'm sorry if I missed your question. I tried to get most of them. You guys are still here next week, right? So we can do another episode.
because I want to say something, because a lot of people asked us about the VODs and how to get the MP3 files to listen to this later on when they don't actually make it to the live cast. We worked a lot on this, and I also had somebody who helped me out a lot. As some of you might know, I was working on a homepage because when I'm streaming Twitch and also YouTube, they mute most of the stream. So somebody gave me infinite web space, and it's gonna be live soon. The homepage is already live. It has some VODs, and I'm gonna upload. I actually already uploaded all the VODs as well as the MP3 files of all of the State of Legacy episodes we have done thus far, and this one is gonna be there as well. And if you wanna check that out, the URL is itsjulian.com.
You should put that in the chat so people
Yeah.
can click on it.
That's right. So from now on, whenever you wanna just download the MP3, I don't know. I think you can watch the VOD on Matthias' channel as well because it's not muted, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But if you wanna get the MP3 file, I'm gonna put it up there. I'm always gonna post about it whenever a new episode comes out or whenever I'm gonna upload a new VOD. As I mentioned, there are some matchup VODs of mine already there. It will still take some more days for the actually literally infinite web space to be unlocked. And then I'm gonna upload even more stuff. So check that out, guys.
Yeah, great work there, Julian. We definitely had a lot of people asking about MP3 files, and I'm glad we can finally get that working. So that's great news. So yeah, thanks everybody for watching. It's been great. We're going to be back next week. Mark is actually going to stream after this.
Yep, that's right.
I promised I would stream Battle of Wits this week. I will do that tomorrow evening. Mark is going to stream some Modern right after this. So if you like Modern, head over to his channel. I'll be Skyping in, so it's going to be great fun. And
Absolutely.
have a good evening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.